Definitely, the greatest embarrassment that Ruto's government has had to date is the Dr. KIZZA Besigye's abduction. Definitely, it is the most embarrassing situation in Kenya since the fifth president took over. I will not comment about the tax, and I will not comment about KIZZA Besigye's supporters who were allegedly kidnapped from Kisumu and taken to Kampala. I have my reasons for not commenting on them. When it comes to the tax, I will say that first of all, I don't have full details. Two, the Kenya government has admitted taking part in the Turkish case. I'm saying so because should there be a fallout, legal or anything, people can take the Kenyan government, they can sue them, they can take them to task for if it is proven it is abduction or anything. As for KIZZA Besigye's supporters who were abducted in Kisumu and taken to Uganda, I cannot comment on it for the simple reason that I do not have all the details. The lesser that I know, the better I don't comment until I have more or even all the comments. I want to say that what happens in such a situation? Now let us take it at the face value. We all agree as of now, although that is why I said face value. We have to agree as of now that Ugandan military police, not even civilian police, military police, went all the way to Nairobi, Riverside to be specific, arrested Dr. KIZZA Besigye and took him to Kampala, more than 1,000 kilometers away. That is what I say it is the biggest embarrassment. Why? It shows that anybody can come into Kenya. It shows that the Kenya security apparatus, especially the Kenya police, are in no control. Military police from Uganda can come to the capital of Kenya and abduct somebody. I remember the head of the military in Uganda, who is also a son to the president of Uganda, one time even saying that he can lead an invasion into Kenya and take the whole of Kenya. He even went on to state that he used to reside in Riverside, and that he would after invading Kenya, he would choose a very good house in Riverside. Now, the very same Riverside, he has sent his military police to come and abduct KIZZA Besigye. The father, who is the commander-in-chief, pretended to be annoyed. He even pretended to retire him from the military, only for him to come back and now the overall military person. That is an embarrassment to the president of Kenya and to the government of Kenya, especially the Kenya police. What happens in such a situation? First of all, it is not even supposed to happen in the first instance. But should it happen, what happens? We have something in a diplomatic manner that is called protest note. Protest note, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kenya is supposed to have done three things. First of all, it is supposed to have written a protest note to the Ugandan government. The second thing that, we usually say when somebody is talking diplomatically, isn't it? Yeah. The second step in a diplomatic talk was to recall the Kenyan ambassador in Kampala to come back to Nairobi for further instructions. Whenever such a thing happens and a country is not happy, they usually have what we call, they recall the ambassador of our ambassador there to Nairobi for instruction or for advice or something. There is a diplomatic word they use. And third and last one is that they tell the Kampala ambassador in Kenya to go back to camp. But what in many cases, and I've said we have diplomatic talks. In many cases, you find the ambassador in Kenya, the Ugandan ambassador in Kenya would pretend not to know what have happened, and he'll be instructed by the minister for, first of all, the minister for foreign affairs. I had forgotten that. The minister for foreign affairs would summon him to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to dress down. We have not seen that. We have not seen that. What we saw, and that is now approaching a week. By the time you watch this video, it will be a week since it happened. The PS in the Foreign Affairs was in Citizens TV on JKL Live, where he was saying that we don't know and we are not even aware. So, okay, now a week has gone. We have even seen TV footages of him being presented before a court martial in Kampala. What has the Ministry of Foreign Affairs done? I remember when the president was in Western, some Luhya members of parliament some Luhya leaders were saying that Mudavadi should be made the minister for internal affairs na awachane na foreign affairs. I think that is what is happening, because maybe he had gone away when such things happen. You cannot be the prefect of cabinet secretaries while you are the minister for foreign affairs. What happens if you are in Saskatchewan when such things are happening? You should be around. After all, Ministry of Internal Affairs is more of a coordination of other ministries. People accuse me of meandering at times, but I have to give an example. How can I talk of such things when I have gone through such a thing and I want to share with, especially, hey, these younger people. You really, mnafanya ninanona, and you even take care of watching, and you even go to my till number. Sisemi huko. Anyway, it happened in 1988 at a place called Diff in northeastern. Now, if you go to Diff, if you want to know where Diff is, if you look at the map of Kenya towards the north, to the east of Kenya, you'll find that there is a very straight line that moves from south to north. Halfway is a place called Diff. We arrested a Somali corporal. Yes, a corporal of the Somali army in 1988. What had happened was that, and that is when I learned about this thing. And the Kenyan government then in 1988, imagine, who was the president in 1988? Na anafanya kazi vizuri kushinda some of you. Anyway, let me not mention him. There is a corporal who was working with the Somali military in Bulahawa, and he was on leave. He went to a place at a place near his place, near Diff. He came from a place near Diff, where he came from. And when he was at his royal home, Oshago, A Kenyan woman from Diff in Kenya now, she went away. She escaped from her matrimonial home and went back to her parents' place in Kenya. So her husband wanted to pursue her and talk to her to his parents-in-law for her to return. So he talked to this corporal who was the from Bulahawa. Bulahawa is next to Mandera, but he was on leave. He talked to this corporal. He wanted an escort, and the corporal talked to his brother. So the corporal, the military corporal, and his brother, who was a civilian, had firearms to escort this person to Kenya. Simultaneously, along the route that the lady used to go back to her parents' home, there was an elephant there. So when these two brothers, one being a corporal in the Somali military, was going to, when they were escorting these people, they came across this elephant. And then they told this fellow who was pursuing his woman, we utajipanga, sisi tumepata a more important job. So they shot this elephant, took out its tusks, and they were planning to go and sell it to a poacher, a very serious poacher, who was at the place called Doble. So when they were going, we received information, and there was an exchange of fire between us and these two brothers. There was plus others. They were not the only ones. So we had an exchange of firearms. At the end of the exchange of the firearms, we caught up with the corporal. We caught up with the corporal who was injured, and the Provincial Security Committee of Northeastern decided to airlift this corporal to the Force Memorial Hospital in Nairobi, so that we can get Nyati House and the NSAC can get more intelligence about his activities. But when we got him, and before he was airlifted, he told us that we should rush into Somalia because we had hurt. He saw his brother running away with serious bullet wounds. So he felt that if we left the brother, he would die out of bullet wounds. You know, he was telling us that because he saw an helicopter. He didn't know that the helicopter was brought because he was a military man and we wanted intelligence. We didn't want him to die, or the Provincial Security Committee did not want him to die. So they made arrangements for him to be airlifted to Nairobi. So he thought that him being airlifted, if his brother is also found, he would also be airlifted. But when we crossed over to Somalia, we found the brother dead. Okay, we passed the information, but of course he was never told his brother he had died. We found the brother had already died. So the Kenyan government, after collecting intelligence, and I know people complain, a lot of people complain that how comes, like the Gen Z were complaining, how comes that the government has set aside a lot of money for, what do you call, intelligence gathering, confidential, yeah, confidential vote or confidential financing. We have people, imagine somebody has stayed along the Kenya border with Somalia for a very long time. He even doesn't give out reports or anything. Because if you give him reports which are related to number of reports, then he'll manufacture reports. He can even manufacture one report in a very long time, but he has to be on a constant salary. Now you know about confidential financing. Now, this is the fellow who told us about the people coming to Kenya, and also the elephant, and so on and so forth. So when this army man was taken, this army NCO was taken to the Force Memorial Hospital at Bagadi, he gave out his service number and where he worked. And when the service number was, then when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was writing a letter to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Mogadishu before Somalia became. I told you that was 1988, and Somalia got spoiled in 1990. Yeah? So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs wrote to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Mogadishu complaining about the activities of its military inside Kenya. We knew the truth, but they wrote a protest note. We knew that this is somebody who was assisting his friend to pursue his wife, one, and two, he came across an elephant and he knew that the tasks would do. But we pretended and just wrote a protest note. Now, if Kenya, that is, I've given you an example which I personally saw and personally participated in, where foreigners had entered into Kenya. And remember, this is some, you see the circumstances is different from this military police who came. They were not pursuing anybody's wife. They did not even come across any elephant and they became poachers. No, these are people who had been sent straight from Kampala to come and abduct them. And then Kenya has not sent a protest note up to this time. Now you understand. And I would say Uganda is a very stupid country. It's a very stupid country. You want to tell me that somebody in Sweden and other countries with 2 pistols and 8 bullets was planning to overthrow the government of Uganda? Even Kenya, I remember when I was going for my YouTube payment, they didn't even carry any money. I just went there, filled in some forms and said, eka hiyo pesa kwa M-Pesa. Nowadays money. But then when I was young, in the 80s, those are the days when you would enter the bar and say, kila mtu lala chini. Those are the people who would use two pistols and 8 bullets. Now today I've learned that you can overthrow the government of Uganda using 2 pistols and 8 bullets. I also want to say that we should complain about Museveni's internal affair. He is not diplomatic. He is not diplomatic. He is not behaving the way a neighboring president should behave. Remember, when Uhuru was being sworn in, and it reached a time when Samuel Losron Pogisio, the then senator for West Pokot, was given time to talk. It reached a time, you know, those are junior people as compared to neighboring heads of state. When it reached the time for Museveni to talk, he attacked Pogisio. He said, na wewe utaacha kuiba ng'ombe zangu. I know what he meant because I worked in Kachelib, Nini. It is now called Karapokot. And I worked at the worst place called Nawiyapong. There's a lot of cat rustling between Pokot, Turkana, Karamojong, and another place, those Kinamoroto area. When I was there, at night, we didn't have electricity. So at night, we could see Moroto light there. I know what was happening there. And this is a case of several tribes, Turkana, Pokot, Karamoja, and others. So you cannot come here and say Pokots are okay. Pokots are they do still more than all others combined. I would say Pokots still 80%. But when you go to somebody's house, when you go to somebody's place and you find his or her kids misbehaving, you don't go into arguing with the kids. You argue with the parent and you don't argue openly. You talk and know how to handle issues. He attacked Pogisio when Uhuru Kenyatta was being sworn in. Several years later, it is during the swearing in of Ruto, and then he goes and there and says, I'm a consumer of intelligence. And Babu Owino, vitu kama hizo. That was really very bad. Now, supposing I want to look at it in 2 ways. I want to look at it from I want to look at it from the Kenyan side and the Ugandan side. If anybody in Kenya, if anybody has a weapon in Kenya, apart from the KDF, anybody else, the National Police Service, the Kenya Wildlife, Kenya Forest, anybody with a firearm outside the purview of the Kenya Defense Forces, the person who controls their usage or retention of firearms is somebody who's called Chief Firearm Officer. He or she is a police officer of the rank of regional police commander. I know the first longest serving firearm bureau officer was Patterson Amuzungu, but when he left, nowadays the power is with the people who are of the same rank as regional police commanders. I remember several of them. I know them. I even remember my brother, my big brother, David Bayer. David Bayer was once such a person. In Kenya, if you are not in the military, the custodian, the person who has a list of all the people, and the person who has powers to decide whether you have a gun or not, if you have an ammunition or not, is that person who's called Chief Firearms Officer. The last time I remember was a traffic, Nairobi area. I don't know whether he or she is still there. So if it is true, if at all for any reason, if for any reason KIZZA Besigye had a gun, whether legal or illegal, the first person to have asked was the Chief Firearms Bureau in charge, who I've said is of the same level as a regional police commander. Once Chief Firearms Officer has decided, because he's the person who should have been told that KIZZA Besigye has guns, then he is the one who determines. He would say, I have allowed him to have guns, or I have not allowed him to have guns. Then once the Chief Firearms Officer has made a decision, one way or another, the next thing that happens is for law to take its course. If the Chief Firearms Officer says you are not allowed to have firearms, then you are taken to court, or the firearm is snatched from you. But if he says you are legally empowered to have a firearm, then you continue having the firearm. That is the system. Now, if for any reason, assuming, because we are not in a position to know whether KIZZA Besigye had a gun or not in the first place, but if he had a firearm in the first place, then if he had a firearm in the first place, then it would be for the Chief Firearms Officer to determine whether he should continue having it or not, and if he determined that he should not have, it is for the Chief Firearms Officer to determine whether KIZZA Besigye was to be taken to court or not. He can decide you don't need a firearm, and he takes it from you, but he decides not to take you to court. So the law allows him him or her to make any decision, and whatever decision he or she makes, that is what the government would do. And supposing he determines that you have a firearm, the second thing he determines that you be taken to court, because he can determine that you have a firearm, and he determines that it be taken from you, but you are not taken to court. Because if he were to take everybody to court, how many Pokots, Turkana, Samburu, Somali, Borana, all those people, how many of them would be taken to court? So sometimes you just do the mop-up, he takes it, and whatever. I think I've explained myself why he has been given those powers. And then KIZZA Besigye was supposed to be taken to Kibera. And if anything, he would have been taken to committee or industrial area. Yeah, he would have been taken to industrial area. That is how it is supposed to be taken. But okay, having 2 bullets, to having 8 bullets and 2 pistols in Riverside, that is a civilian offense inside Kenya. So Uganda government, Uganda police, Uganda military police have no business. Now there is the other aspect that he is being charged with. That is, I've now talked of the Kenyan aspect. Allow me now to talk about the Ugandan aspect. He has been taken to he has been taken to a military a martial court in Kampala, charged with possessing firearms in River. The charge sheet is very clear. Riverside, Nairobi. Now, everybody with a firearm in Riverside, how is he answerable to Ugandan government, any of the Ugandan government departments, be it Ugandan court, be it Ugandan whatever? It is outside the jurisdiction. And I've also talked quickly. I've also talked about the Elmi Triangle in Turkana. Uh, that is, it used to be part of Southern Sudan, but administered in Kenya. Then there was a problem about its jurisdiction, because in the laws of Kenya, it determines every jurisdiction of every court. For example, the jurisdiction of Kibera Court is within, is it southern parts of Nairobi, Makadara towards the east, and so on and so forth. Then the High Court has jurisdiction, a wider jurisdiction, such as such a thing. But under the Criminal Procedure Code of Kenya, there is nowhere where it talks of Uganda police or even Uganda military police or even Ugandan government having jurisdiction over Riverside. And I'm emphasizing on Riverside because in the charge sheet in Kampala, it states that he was found with 2 pistols in Riverside, Nairobi. And my understanding, the little understanding that I have, is that court martials are for serving military personnel. For example, world over, you know, different countries have slightly different constitution and laws and whatever. So for example, we have some countries where if me and you, we are Kenyans, and we cross over to Busia and we go into Uganda, or we cross over Namanga into Tanzania, or Moyale into Ethiopia, according to Kenyan law, if we go there and I kill you, I cannot be charged with murder in any of the Kenyan offenses. But in some countries, if you commit a crime to a fellow citizen of that country, an offense that, even if in that place even if in that country where you committed the offense, it's not an offense, but in your home country it is an offense. When you come back to your home country, you can be charged with that. There are some countries with such jurisdiction, but Kenya and Uganda doesn't have. But and also my understanding is that court martials are meant for serving military officers. Serving military officers. Now, if I've never been in the military, but if today I plan to overthrow this government, the Kenyan government, using the military people, the military people whom I would have associated with would be court-martialed, but me, I would be taken to a civilian court. Even if I was still active as a police officer, that is the system would have happened. Now, a person like Dr. KIZZA Besigye was in the military. He's a retired military colonel. If he was still, the time when the colonel who is prosecuting his case, I'm reminding myself, about what Dr. Haminwa recently said, that I started practicing when, yeah, when Colonel Besige was a colonel. That is the time when that colonel who is prosecuting the case was so, in all purposes or whatever, uh, Besige is a civilian. We have offenses. We have offenses that are called extradition offenses. Supposing Uganda wanted to extradite him, of course they did it, but illegally. What they usually do is, first and foremost, they come to the Kenyan courts and uh, present their cases to the courts. And if they have any reason that in the process of the case going on, Dr. Besige would have run away, then they would ask for the Kenyan courts to detain him while the extradition, or even detain his particular things like passports and whatever, so that he cannot move out. And maybe even the migrations are told to be on the lookout, so that he doesn't look. There is that extradition proceedings which goes on through the, the High Court. And once it is through, the CJ may even appeal. The CJ may even appeal to the Court of Appeal and so on. So when they have exhausted the the, 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 the extradition, is when he is taken to Kampala. Another thing I'm finding that is very out of place, very much out of place, um, according to Besige's proceeding. I'm forgetting, but I'll remember that as we say. He was taken to Makindye military. He was taken. Yeah, I've remembered. Sorry. I keep on forgetting, but I've remembered. Is that in any proceedings, and I still apologize for having forgetting. In any proceedings where somebody is accused of anything, you are either taken to the court of the place where the offense was committed, or there's jurisdiction. For example, if you're traveling from Mombasa to Kisumu through Jambo Jet, Jambo Jet mtanilipa, through Jambo Jet, and somewhere there you commit a crime, you can be charged in Mombasa court, or you can be charged in Kisumu court. Of course, you cannot be charged in the cloud court. So, if BCJ planned, to overthrow Museveni in Sweden or Switzerland, whatever, he should have, if he was planning to overthrow Ugandan government in Sweden, he should have been charged in Sweden or in Kampala. And what would happen? He was just in Nairobi for a book launch. After the book launch, they should have waited for him to go back to Kampala. This thing was deliberately done to spite Kenya. And the funny thing is that even after spiting Kenya, we still behave. Kwani must Raila be the chairman of AUC? You see, this is what happens when you are campaigning. Unapitia vitu vingi sana. Hata if you want to be a councillor, MCA, anything, even we just tell you, do this, or if you don't do this thing, we will not elect you. So I think the government should, if that is the idea it has, that they want to take care of Museveni's vote, so that that one is, hiyo wakati yake iliisha na kina Ochuka. You remember Ochuka was arrested in no, Ochuka ran and went to Dar es Salaam. I'm not supporting what Ochuka did, but he went to Dar es Salaam and he was just brought in kienyeji. Let me ask you a question, or let me ask myself a question. Do you believe that the Kenya police did not take part in any of these things? Kikuyu say, henia wanyu, ndokahenie nie. There are some things that you can even not cheat a standard. Oh, nowadays they say grade one. There are some things that you can even not cheat a grade one child. You know, arresting such a person and the hula baloo that happens and whatever, we even have circumstances. And I'm talking from a very technical, what do you call? This is an expert opinion that I talked about it during the Gorsunku in parliamentary whatever. I talked over something that is called a dog handler and a dog escort. Of course, one may quickly conclude that I'm talking about dog section. But what happens is that when you are going to do dirty jobs in a place where you have no jurisdiction or where you are not known, then you use a local agent to be like your dog escort. Those in dog section, when a dog handler is coming maybe to sniff around to see if you have drugs or anything, there is usually a local police officer who shows that person ways around. That is called a dog escort. But the person who comes with a dog from the section is called a dog handler. Now, when Bishop Muge was being pursued, some people came from Nyati House straight away to do the dirty job, and they had to get a constable from our Eldoret office to escort them. So that was the nickname of dog escort. Now, I'm not convinced. I believe that people in the DCI did escort the Ugandan police up to that place. They must have received him, let's say, okay, Kino. They must have received him at Kino. They must have received the Ugandans at Kino. After receiving the Ugandan military police yeah, a mixture of military police and military intelligence. Then they took the Ugandans to Riverside. I even believe that some elements in the Kenyan intelligence were monitoring because were monitoring KIZZA BESIGYE. Because the reason why I'm saying so, is that this man had to be placed in a place. Supposing they would have gone to a place where he was not there and tried to arrest him, that thing would have blown out and whatever, and it would have caused problem. So there must be somebody who was surveilling him, who was performing surveillance on him throughout. There is a person who was performing surveillance to him throughout until Malaba. I paused there because I wanted to say this. There is one party that was following him around, left, right, and whatever, just keeping him from the time he arrived into Kenya to the time when he crossed over as a prisoner into Uganda. There was a team that was monitoring all the shadowing him. Then there is, of course, the Ugandan team, which is the second one, which came from Uganda, came linked up with the Kenyan security agents, went arrested him. The Kenya security agents were the dog escort, escorted him up to the border, and that is when the Kenya security agents came back. With those so very many remarks, those are my views, and I stand by them. Mutadu